determine what impact Assad's death will have on the Middle East peace negotiations. Senior White House correspondent John King on that.
The president was attending a college commencement in Minnesota when he received a note with official word of Assad's death, and yet another setback for the already troubled Middle East peace process.
While we had our disagreements, I always respected him because I felt that he was open and straightforward with me, and because I felt he meant it when he said he had made a strategic choice for peace.
The president's public praise masked the administration's profound frustration with Assad. Mr. Clinton met with him 4 times over the past 7 years, most recently 3 months ago in Geneva. Assad was frail then, told Mr. Clinton he was committed to the path of peace. But U.S. officials say Assad refused to take the critical final steps, refused to back off a demand that Israel first agreed to give back all of the Golan Heights before Syria would negotiate the other key issues, like security arrangements and access to the Sea of Galilee. Now, U.S. officials predict months of uncertainty.
There will be a period of mourning in Syria. There will be a period of sorting out. And the Syrian people will make some decisions, and then we'll see what happens.
The heir apparent Bashar Assad has had no contact with senior U.S. officials. U.S. intelligence sources view Bashar Assad as more willing and eager than his father to integrate Syria into the world community. And these sources say they believe he understands peace with Israel would be the critical first step. Yet U.S. officials also predict it will take at least several months for Bashar Assad to consolidate power and for Israel to decide if he is a man who can be trusted.
Hafez Al-Assad was known as a very tenacious negotiator, a very tough bargainer. And it will be very difficult for a successor to make concessions which the Syrian people believe Hafez Al-Assad would not have made.
So most U.S. officials are pessimistic about the chances for substantial progress in the Syrian track of the peace process in the final months of the Clinton administration. Secretary of State Madeleine Albright will lead the U.S. delegation to Tuesday's funeral for Assad.
President Clinton decided not to attend in part because Syria remains on the list of governments the United States accuses of state-sponsored terrorism. Mr. Clinton's urgent focus now will be on trying to revive the Israeli-Palestinian track of the peace process. He spoke earlier this evening for about 10 minutes with the Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak, Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat, due here at the White House on Wednesday. And amid all this disappointment and uncertainty, some U.S. officials voicing hope that Assad's death might motivate Arafat, who's in his 70s, to redouble his efforts to reach a peace agreement. Joey?
John, adding it up, do administration officials view Bashar as a possible successor as to be a positive or negative for the peace process?
Well, they say the best thing to do is look in the weeks and months ahead at how he consolidates power. U.S. officials and intelligence sources very impressed so far by what they have seen. They believe there is a very clean succession underway in Damascus. They think in the long run, he was trained in Britain for his medical career. He has expressed the views in the past, including bringing the internet into Syria, that the government should do more to integrate itself with the world community. In the long run, they believe he could be a plus for the peace process if he smoothly consolidates power, but they're pessimistic here because this president very much wanted to get a deal before he leaves office. No one in the White House believes that is possible now. They believe it will take months for the new Syrian leader to get his footing and that his immediate focus will be on domestic politics.
John, we know that President Assad had been sick for some time, yet had the White House any indication in the days prior to today that something was afoot, that the situation was terminal?
No indication that his passing was imminent, although if you go back 3 months to when Mr. Clinton last met President Assad in Geneva, U.S. officials came out of those talks quite worried. They believed President Assad's focus was elsewhere, that while he was saying all the right things, saying that Syria wanted peace with Israel, that he was much more focused on his situation back home, on making sure his son was ready to succeed him. U.S. officials looking back at those conversations now believe that President Assad knew that he was ill and knew that if he struck a deal then, that perhaps the political climate back home would not be right for his son to succeed him, so that he put that decision first, and only after the succession was worked out was willing to get back to the peace process. Now, obviously, with his passing, U.S. officials will be watching his son quite closely to test his commitment to peace.
John King for us at the White House. Jonathan?
Our extensive coverage continues in the minutes ahead with the insights of a career U.S. diplomat, a Lebanese journalist, and we look back and hear the words of Hafez Al-Assad himself. Stay with us for more on the life and death of Hafez Al-Assad.
hearts. We make people smile. We're the people of Pfizer. We develop medicines that make the world a better place. We spend over $2.5 billion a year on research. That's why we believe we'll introduce more new medicines for more diseases than anyone else. We're not just looking for cures, we're going to find them. Pfizer, life is our life's work.
That's my final offer. That's my final offer. That's my final offer.
Mr. Tyler, right here.
That's my final.
Come on in, Mr. Taylor.
Tyler, as you can see, we offer a very competitive mortgage rate. Plus, low closing.
Want banks to compete over you? Come to LendingTree.com. Fill out one form and get up to 4 offers within hours.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
It's Tyler.
When banks compete, you win at LendingTree.com.
I like to leave my problems at home when I drive. But if I can't leave them at home, I tell them they can come along. But only if they shut up and enjoy the ride.
Hey, sweetie.
You got that?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
We rented your room.
What?
Well, we have to make up for the money we lost in the market somehow.
Yeah, we thought we tried investing on our own.
But it's my room.
Oh, it still is. Half of it, anyway. Frogger. Jimmy Frog.
Jimmy!
Next time, don't go it alone. Ask your financial advisor about the fund so many financial experts choose. Alliance Capital, the investment professional's choice.
Tonight on Larry King Weekend, an encore presentation of Larry's interview with former Manson family member Leslie Van Houten, just days after her parole hearing. Tonight, 9 Eastern on CNN.
The death of Syrian President Hafez Al-Assad casts a shadow over the already uncertain Middle East peace process. Now, as Syria prepares for new leadership, Israel, which has long been Syria's strongest foe, is closely watching developments. As CNN's Gerald Kessel reports, while there is worldwide sadness over Assad's death, there's also optimism for peace in a new era.
With Israeli television providing blanket coverage of Syrian television coverage, Israelis learned of President Assad's death just as soon as Syrians themselves. The news prompted a quick official Israeli response.
Israel expresses its condolences to the Syrian people with the passing away of President Hafez Al-Assad. Israel has constantly strived for peace with Syria and will continue with this policy in the future as well. For us, peace and tranquility in our borders with Syria and Lebanon is a vital interest, and we hope that this also will be Syrian interest as well.
On the Golan Heights, under Israeli control since 1967, black flags were raised immediately in Druze Syrian villages. But for the past quarter century, President Assad had ensured that that Golan front with Israel remained quiet. It's Israel's border with Lebanon, where Syria is regarded as the main power broker, and from where Israel only recently withdrew its army after a long occupation, that there's concern about a vacuum and about stability. But also new hopes. Under U.S. auspices, there had been an attempt to conclude a full Israeli-Syrian peace, Prime Minister Ehud Barak having talks with Syria's Foreign Minister Farouk al-Sharrah. The fruitless Clinton-Assad meeting dead-ended that effort, leaving Mr. Barak still apparently believing President Assad could carry through such a deal if he chose. But with Israel more uncertain than ever that the Syrian leader had completed a transition from enemy to strategic peace partner.
There was some kind of a dissonance in President Assad's attitude towards Israel. Somehow he wanted to make peace, but was not ready to make the last step. And maybe in the future, his successor, without this baggage, will be ready to take this step, because he will understand that the road for the prosperity, for the economic prosperity of Syria goes through peace with Israel.
Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat, saying he was stunned by the death of the great Assad, proclaimed 3 days of mourning. The two men had a checkered and often troubled relationship, the Syrian leader criticizing Mr. Arafat's approach to peacemaking.
All the time there was no chemistry between Mr. Assad and Mr. Arafat, even from the early 80s. And it's not only because of the peace process. We hope that the new president in Syria will change this direction and will try to normalize the relations with the Palestinian leadership.
A new era is how both Palestinians and Israelis see it. Some Israelis wonder aloud, if they had concluded a peace with President Assad, would it have survived his death? And they're asking themselves, since he never concluded that peace, is there now a new chance for it? Gerald Kessel, CNN, Jerusalem.
Next year, helping the West understanding and perspective of the